All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming on over to the Almond stage where we get to hear from one of our sponsors tonight. I have the pleasure of introducing one of our silver sponsors, which is TOMRA. They are a manufacturer of sorting machines for a variety of industries, including almonds. And we get to hear today about how their sorting machines are built, they're future-proof. You can use them for many years into the future because of all the advancements in technology and software. So we get to hear how they do that. So with us today is Brendan O'Donnell. He's the Global Director of Dried Fruits and Nuts at TOMRA Food, and he'll be sharing about this technology. Please welcome Brendan.
All right, so thank you, Mandy. Thanks also to the Almond Conference. I love being able to give this talk every year. Today, as Mandy mentioned, I want to talk a little bit about how machines that today are becoming future-proof. We all have examples of purchasing a phone or a laptop or a car, and a few years later, you're starting to regret it. Maybe it's old, maybe it's obsolete. The machines we're building today are built so that that never happens. And I'll be able to show you how here in just a minute. So I'm going to break our talk down today into 4 pieces. First, I'm just going to give a small overview about who TOMRA is, just in case you're not already familiar. Or if you are already familiar, it's a little update for 2023. Then I'm going to talk very briefly about the 5C platform, the 5C machine, which we launched 3 years ago today, except from being on stage or behind a camera because that was our first virtual conference from COVID. But that machine has now been launched 3 years. Then I'll talk about all the different improvements that we've made to the machine. So we called that machine future-proof when we launched it 3 years ago, and I'll show you everything that we've done in the last 3 years in order to back up those claims. And then finally, as something that's just a little bit of fun, we'll look at what we might expect in the future. And the future is not like 5, 10 years in the future is like a few months into the future. All right, so TOMRA. We are a globally, we're a publicly traded company on the Norwegian Stock Exchange. We operate in more than 100 countries around the world, 12.2 billion Norwegian krona. That's roughly 1.1 billion US dollars, so it's a fairly substantial company. 5,000 employees around the world. And we celebrated our 50th anniversary last year. The food part of our business is roughly 1/3 of our business, so about 300 million US dollars in revenue. We have about 1,500 employees, and we address 60% of the total addressable market in the food industry. Some of the things that we're constantly thinking about at TOMRA. We recognize that by 2050, a global population of 9.8 billion people will require 70% more food than what we use today. We also recognize that 125 tons of food is produced every second. This one, I think, is super interesting. We will need more food in the next 40 years than all of the harvests combined in history of all time ever. So it's a lot that we have to look up to. And the thing that we focus on probably more than any other, because in our business it's something that we actually have some control over, is food waste. And today about 33% of total food around the world is wasted. We're very fortunate in the almond industry that we do not get impacted this way, but for other industries it does. I like to show this slide at the Almond Conference because it shows where we are. And we are dedicated to the almond industry. You'll see 2 offices here in California, one here in West Sacramento, one in Visalia. We've got multiple offices in Australia, multiple offices in Europe, and some offices even in Spain. Okay, and some of the categories that we work in. If you can think of a food product or a food category, yes, we work in that category. This is just a small example of what we work in, but it's some of the largest categories for us. So potatoes, nuts, dried fruit, citrus, apples, blueberries, cherries, all of these are really big categories for us. Of course, since I look after the nuts and dried fruit business, and I'm the one with the microphone, I can tell you that this is our most important category right there as nuts and dried fruit. This is an interesting one because in our business, we need to be able to use a lot of different types of technology in order to use the right tool for the right job. So that means that depending on what the defect is, we might be looking for a certain type of foreign material detection. We might be looking for a different kind of a blemish. We might be looking for toxins. This is a whole other topic that we'll get into. Maybe the structure of the product is something that we're looking for. We use biometric characteristics, analyzing the water, the oil, and the moisture content of a product, which is especially relevant in nuts. Shape and size, that's a fairly basic thing. Color, a lot of these things are fairly simple, but it's really important that we're using the right tool for the right job. And this is our product lineup. So as you can see, it's a lot of machines. Over here on the far side of the A portfolio, that's the machines that we use for whole product sorters. So maybe potatoes, tomatoes, something that's bigger that requires a mechanical finger to eject it. The B platform, B is for belt. That's for a lot of, actually more and more in the nuts these days, we see this product, but the biggest application for us here is things like French fries, potato chips, leafy greens. That's a big part of that business. The C platform is the nuts platform, to make it plainly. So the 5C is really the machine that we have, that's the most common machine that we use for the nuts business. We have x-ray machines, we have peeling machines, and this whole bottom section is for singulated machines. So these are the products that take a single apple, a single orange, a single cherry, they rotate it, they analyze it, and they drop it into whatever bucket it needs to be dropped into. This is another way to look at the machines. So A, like I said, is for in-air inspection, so you can see the actual mechanical fingers that are moving to move that product. So again, for heavier products. You can see the way that the belt inspection works, and you get a multi-angle, so you can put cameras at a lot of different angles in order to see product. The chute, as I mentioned, for nuts, x-rays, and of course for singulation. And I only have one last slide, and then I'll be done talking about TOMRA as a company. The R&D piece of our business is incredibly important. We have 16% of our employees that work in R&D. We have 42 different patent families owned. We have 8% of our total revenue that gets reinvested back into R&D. So at the beginning, I was talking about being a $1 billion company. Well, 8%, we basically reinvest $80 million a year into R&D. We recognize that we're a technology company, and you absolutely have to be investing heavily into R&D if you want to maintain a stable future. We work with a lot of different institutions, R&D institutions, universities, and we actually develop a lot of our own sensors. So if you were to open up our machines and you were to try to figure out how to build your own, a lot of that stuff we build ourselves, and it's very difficult to do that. Okay, so the TOMRA 5C, as we launched it 3 years ago to this day, we launched this machine with several different highlights. One was based on the Exceed platform. Exceed means no constraints development. That means that we're able to change the software. We are able to constantly make this machine better over time. We focused on improving the optical sensors, so both laser and BSI sensors. We increased the capacity of the machine. So this is basically just done through mechanics, but we're able to increase the capacity of this machine, specifically on almonds, almost 100%, doubled the capacity on the same size machine. A new ejection design manifold. Probably one of the most important pieces of this machine is the hygienic design. So we built the machine where there's no flat surfaces for water or dust to collect. We built it where the doors open out very easily. You can easily access the inside of the machine to clean it. Cleaning this machine takes roughly 1/3 the amount of time that it takes to clean one of the predecessor's machines. That means more uptime, that means less labor cost. All of those things actually have a very big impact. Embedded nitrogen, so you don't need extra nitrogen tanks. Easy to use interface, and of course a focus on data. We have 4 different options on this machine. When we first, well, actually back up to the Nimbus machine, we had 3 different options. You could have double laser, single BSI, or double BSI, single laser. It was important to us that on this machine, a customer had a full range of options. They could build whatever they want to build. So if you want a single side BSI, fine. Single side laser, fine. You want all of the above, fine. We have the capability of doing that. Again, it goes back to making sure you have the right tool for the right job. What are you trying to do, and how do you do that as efficiently as possible? Okay, so that's the 5C as we launched it. Now, when we launched this machine, we said this machine is future-proof, and we said this is the platform for the future. And in order for us to back that up, we have to say, okay, it's been 3 years. What have we done on this machine to say that we have upgraded the machine, that we have made it better than it was when it was first launched? So I'm just going to run through a series of slides here fairly quickly, and then we can look at an overview at the end. Simple things like a calibration sensor that you use to calibrate the machine. Said, well, let's make that a double-sided machine. You cut your calibration in half. Done. We added a gentle handling, slow down flap to a hopper that's now standard with all the machines that we have. We redesigned accept chutes for smoother narrowing angles, which reduces the amount of damage. It's important in almonds, but it's even more important for things like walnuts. This is actually a really important improvement that we made. We increased some laser safety. We did that through actually, you're going to see laser safety come up a few different times in this presentation. In this case, we're talking about some physical shielding for the laser safety. And then we've also increased the adjustability for our in-feed shaker to create a smoother transition of products. So getting a nice smooth transition of the product through the machine is really important. We changed the polygon. We went with a polygon that basically increases the lifetime of the polygon. And we had one of our first software updates in March of 2022 where we were able to increase the object height. So to do object processing, you have to be able to recognize that that defect is on an object, and you have to be able to see the whole object. So if you're doing something like an in-shell walnut, which is a very large object, you have to be able to increase that height. In almonds, this is less relevant unless you're doing maybe a very, very large in-shell almond sort, then it would become relevant. We also added alarms for classifier errors, low nitrogen pressure. Then in May, we recognized that some areas don't necessarily have super reliable power. And if you power down a machine really quickly, you have the potential to damage the machine. So we added a new piece of equipment that will help the machine power down slowly and safely in the event of a power outage. And we improved the laser drum scraper assembly for more efficient cleaning. Okay, a big software increase here for June of 2022. In this case, the 1.17 software, which had laser safety firmware, bug fixes, various PLC updates. So again, thinking about this machine as the platform for the future, a lot of the improvements come from software updates. We also added some anti-spillage flaps, so if you're running small pieces of almonds, maybe small pieces of walnuts, it helps keep everything contained into the machine. We then added new laser safety doors, so new doors that had an increased lifetime. We added the ability to remove the optical sorting door completely from the machine. So if you have a machine in a really tight space and you want to open up that optical door on a hinge, you might find yourself in trouble. So we said, let's figure out a way to make the door be able to just pop off completely, and that's something that we designed in this case. We also made it possible to move your ejection bar. So sometimes you want that bar to be really close to the product, sometimes you want it to be a little bit further away. So we wanted to make sure that that was an option. Another big software upgrade came in September of 22. In this case, it's the 1.19 software. This had a lot to do with optimization for BSI Plus. So this, it's an interesting thing because the BSI Plus technology, the same polygon, the same sensors, the same everything in the machine is continuously improving on its performance through software updates. And this was a big part of that. We also added an anti-spillage kit. It's just a kit that can go around the bottom of the machine and collect any product that might fall out. That's important in order to make sure that you're maintaining a food-grade product. We added cabinet overpressure, an additional filter regulator. All of this is designed to help keep dust out of the machine, so keeping an overpressure inside the cabinet. This is a really big release that we had. So this is Detox. This is where we have now officially launched the 5C machine to do aflatoxin reduction. This is something I would really like to spend more time talking about. So if anybody has interest in talking about detox, talking about aflatoxin reduction, this is a proven, reliable method that we can have, that we do. And we've got all kinds of people that are in our stand that would love to talk to you more about it. Okay, another big software update. So this is Exceed 2.0. So in Exceed 2.0, we added an option for a 10 millimeter pitch upgrade, so you can have a larger ejector for larger products. We updated the network configuration. We did program grouping. We made it easier to create classifiers, to trigger images as you're creating classifiers. And with any software update, of course, you always have your standard bug fixes. We also made improvements to the nitrogen generator. So there were some parts that were maybe overly complex. We simplified those, removed them, made it possible to connect multiple machines together to the nitrogen generator and make that a really easy thing to do. Okay, and then finally, the last slide that I have for this, we added a remote touch option. So if you've got a machine that's up on a platform and you want to be able to access it quickly and you don't want your operators going up and down the entire day, you can stand off to the side, you can access the machine and control it from the ground. And then, of course, a couple more big software updates. The latest one, the 2.1 software, gives us shoot to defect. It gives us internal marker creation for stronger classifiers. It gives us cleaning mode. That means you're able to open the machine, get in there and clean without shutting the whole machine down. Again, saves you time, saves you money, all of that stuff. That's a really important update that we have. If I'm going to group these things together, I'll say, okay, we've got a safety component, we've got an improved flow component, we've got a software component, performance component, and ease of use and integration component. Each one of these things is proof that when we launch a machine and we say, okay, this is the platform for the future and it's future-proof, we want to make sure that we can back that up. So as you look at this and you recognize that there were new updates, maybe not every single one of these updates is this, earth-shattering, amazing update, but when you combine this stuff together, you now have a machine that's completely different from the machine that you originally purchased and is performing significantly better than the machine that you originally purchased. It is the platform for the future and it is future-proof. So speaking of the future, this is kind of a fun section for me. I just want to share two small slides here. And in this case, it's going to be a little bit of a sneak peek into what you might expect into the future for these machines. The first one that I'll share is a 5C to a 5B transition. Both of these machines are very common in almond processing plants today. The thing that makes this special is that if you want to move from a 5C to a 5B today, oftentimes that product is going out through the 5C, going to an elevator, going to a shaker, going to a chute, going to the 5B. And now we will be able to do it where the 5C just drops directly onto the 5B. You've eliminated 3 major pieces of equipment and you've been able to speed up the belt on the 5B. That means you can match the speed between the 5C and the 5B, and this will probably be sold as a 2-machine combination in most cases. And one of the most relevant things for the almond industry will be sort to spec. Sort to spec is a software upgrade that we are able to analyze all of the product that's coming into the machine, and all you have to do is set the defect, you set the spec that you want coming out of the machine. So if you have incoming lots and you have 8% chip and scratch, 10% chip and scratch, 12% chip and scratch, as you know it varies when you go through, you can tell the machine, I want to target 8.5% chip and scratch because I'm making a US #1 Supreme grade, and that machine will choose how many almonds it needs to remove in order to meet your 8.5% chip and scratch. This is really important for a few reasons. One, of course, you're not giving product away for free, but two, and probably even more important, is creating consistency on behalf of your buyers. So if you sell a US #1 Supreme grade, and you end up sending a product to your customer that's 4% chip and scratch, not only did you give a bunch of good almonds away for free, but you've now created an expectation in your customer's mind that when they buy a Supreme grade, they should expect an extra #1. In this case, we're creating consistency. And above all else, I think that's what really customers are looking for, is that consistency. With all of these things together, I want to bring home the point here that TOMRA is really focused on the future. We talked about R&D, we talked about our investment into the future, we talked about $80 million a year that's spent in R&D, and we talked about the 5C being the platform for the future and being future-proof. All of the things that we're working on today and the things that we're working on tomorrow are going to mean that the machine that you bought 3 years ago, or the machine you buy today, or the machine you buy tomorrow, will continue to be state-of-the-art years into the future. Thank you.